I come from a land, from a faraway place, where the caravan camels roam. Where it's flat and immense and the heat is intense. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home. Come on down, stop on by, hop a carpet and fly to another Arabian night.
I can hear the tone in my head, but were all the words I couldn't really tell you. Unlike the movies now, like, clearly you're supposed to learn every word to Frozen. You weren't expected to learn all the words to Aladdin. So I think media may have changed a little bit. And not to say that saying that the era was barbaric, I'm not trying to make excuses for it, because it's still something I don't know that we need to tell children. But on the other hand, you look at all other forms of media that we had at that time. You have Bugs Bunny with Roadrunner and the Wile E. Coyote. How did I shape my lens around Middle Eastern culture in Iowa? For that, you almost need to be in 1970s Iowa, which is not Iowa today. So I don't recall having anybody of any sort of, once again, Egyptian, Middle Eastern, Persian descent even in my entire school, let alone in any form of media. So the scene of Aladdin would have been during my first years of college, and I went to a small private Catholic school in Iowa, and so that demographic didn't really change. So there was no other knowledge of who that should be. There was no pretense then also as to whether or not anybody of that descent would be a good person or a bad person. They were just people. Yes and no. Yes, clearly in that Tangled, Brave, and so forth, they're clearly making her more a pronounced character that's in alignment with what society deems women do. But I also believe on the flip side that Jasmine was downplayed quite often, and downplayed in terms of media, and since 1992, since Into the Millennium, the people say, oh, well, she's treated so poorly. But even watching it again, I'm like, I don't see it that way. So this is like at least 1,000 to 3,000 years ago that this movie is supposed to have been projected, so that there would have been laws during that era anywhere in the world that says the Sultan decides who marries when and so forth. Presumably, I would assume actually to be true. And so it was interesting to me that now in the millennia, people are like, oh, well, she shouldn't have had to do that. Well, it's a history movie, or it's based on a historical context, so it was doing it right. That she would still take the strength to go, well, I want to go explore. That was a cultural acceptable thing and norm for her, that she could do that and not be beheaded or anything, have some dramatically horrible thing happen to her because she made that choice. I think it's still true in Brave, Tangled, the Frozen people, Frozen girls, princesses. They've often been allowed to do lots of things, but it's a lot easier to look at the glass half full and say, oh no, these princesses, feminism, that's not true with them. But for the era in which they were supposed to have been, they're often given many emancipated ideas of things that they can do and how they do persevere.
Say hello to your precious Prince Ali!
Or should we say, Aladdin?
Rags to Riches theme is definitely a often repetitive theme in many forms of American cinema. But having also lived abroad, I would say it's actually a theme used internationally. It's not solo to American culture. I haven't seen a lot of Bollywood movies, for example, but I would assume, particularly with the level of caste system in the area of the country in which many Bollywood movies are made, that it's probably a theme used in lots of places. Watching the movie again was a very interesting lens, particularly in consideration that I work with more individuals now than I did in Iowa or at the time of a background of any Egyptian, Persian, Middle Eastern descent of any kind, and having that as my background knowledge that I didn't have previously, knowledge that I didn't necessarily associate as relevant to me, was very interesting to watch it again, and I couldn't help but think, I wonder how they respond to this movie. But what was also interesting is, to me, it was still Aladdin, and it was still Disney, so I still enjoyed it tremendously, and giggled a lot because it's probably something. So.